Live an optimal life through health and wellness. Be well, get well, and stay well.
This episode, as we talk with Leo about drinking water, we are going to talk about antioxidants, negative charge, clean water versus healthy water. We are going to address molecules, cellular hydration, alkalinity, pH, all of these things that we hear all the time, and things that are in our water and things that shouldn't be in our water, and what we can actually do about it that is financially possible and it is doable. And the effects, this is the most important part, the effects of all of this on our health for positive and for negative, what we need to know. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Eileen Whipple, and I'm excited to be here today because I have a special guest. And as you know, my goal in life is for everyone to be well, get well, and stay well. And today I have Leo, I don't even want to say your last name. Zimborski with us from pH Prescriptions to talk with us about water. And so we're going to share a PowerPoint and also some great information, but I would like to just share a little bit about how I got here. So 24 years ago, I started on a health journey. And mind you, I was brought up in a family where if it was on the shelf, it was probably good, and natural was of no essence. It was not important. But what I found myself in is I had a 6-week-old, a 2, and a 4-year-old, and I wasn't able to be the mom I wanted to be because I was spending more time in doctor's offices and in hospitals than I could be with my children and raising them. And that set me on a journey. And for years, I searched out everything possible. I changed my environment of my air, my food, my water. And I thought I was doing great, and I was actually. I'm here today. I do not even believe the prognosis of my diagnosis at this point. I'm 9 years in the good. So it's been a journey. But I had put salt water system on my house, and I put an RO system under my sink. And I was buying bottled water. I was buying all the great name brands, keeping my body as healthy as possible. And then about 3 years ago, I met Mike at Exceptional Water Systems, which we've already had an interview with them, which I'll put in the link below. And he turned me on to Leo and what was going on with him with house water systems for the entire house and for under the sink. And so I have been biting at the bit to share this information with all of you because of the difference it's made in my life the last 3 years. It's the cumulative effect. It's not one and done that, okay, I drank healthy water one day or I did one exercise and my body's all fit now, right? It's the cumulative effect. And that's what we're going to talk about. He's going to teach us about water. So Leo, I'm just going to turn it over to you for a minute. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll turn on the PowerPoint when you're ready.
Great. My name is Leo Zimborski. I'm a third-generation plumber by trade. That's how I got my start. Most people don't believe that, but I was a hard-headed plumber out of New Jersey, and it was ingrained in me over 3 generations. And just not that long ago, I had some health issues of my own, and I'm going to speak about more in my PowerPoint. But these health issues was a paradigm shift for me. I understood I needed to start listening to my body. Needed to start listening to other people, other experts that understood way more than I did about health, because the standard of care that I was going through was horrible. And the things that I was being recommended by our standard of care, or our modern medicine, which I think is a horrible name for it because there's not much modern about it. The things that I was put on, the medications I was put on, turned me into a slug. And like yourself, I had 3 young children at the time, and I was only 40 years old when I was at my worst. I'm 55 now, and I'm in way better shape, way better energy. My skin even looks better than it did when I was 40. So when people that know me or have known me from the past can't believe, they think I'm not aging. But I'm getting a little gray. That wasn't there before. But other than that, it's just been my 35-year quest of what I've done. I started out in cleaning up toxic wells in New Jersey. Before I knew about healthy water, I was working with clean water, and clean water meaning to taking the things out of water that were dangerous. And for me, like tap water wasn't no biggie. I didn't really care about tap water because I thought that we were being protected by tap water. We're not a third world country, right? So I was focused on taking out the chemicals that were put in the ground by companies like DuPont, Monsanto, and they were toxifying and screwing up the rivers. And I lived on the Delaware River, which is the 9th most contaminated river in the world. And that's saying something, because we have EPA regulations that some countries don't. And so by my whole journey was to clean water and to develop better products. And my father, he knew I was intuitive and I could create and make things. And he would always say, hey, we got a new project for you, because we had acid water or acid rain from all the industry in our area that was eating up copper pipes and just doing all kinds of damage. And so one of my first projects was to adjust the pH of the water and get the pH alkaline, so it would stop attacking the plumbing that we were installing in homes. So in that career, I learned how to not only balance pH, remove toxic chemicals, and then later in life, when I had my health issues, I learned how to not only make clean water, but make healthy water. And that was very, very important. And we'll talk about that in this podcast.
So is that where your word healthification comes from?
Yeah, actually, it came from my copywriter and big time helper, Allison.
Okay.
And that was a word that she invented, because she said it just made total sense.
Gotcha. All right. For those of you who have been with me before, you know that I've talked a lot about environmental things. And so we're going to talk about water, the myths, the facts, what health requires, and what are the options. And you know this, the genetic versus environmental. It is now believed that 95% of our health is environmentally influenced. That only leaves 5% for genetics. This is exciting news, because that means we can actually make a difference in our health, which is what I've experienced. And it's what you've experienced, Leo. How exciting is it that we can actually make a difference? Now, we'll go ahead and Leo, I'm going to turn it over to you to share what you have ready to teach us.
Okay, well, I pretty much explained this slide. You know, I'm developing technologies that make clean and healthy water. And I went in a little bit about, I'm a third generation plumber and pipe fitter from New Jersey. And some of the places I worked, DuPont, Monsanto, other chemical plants that I worked in, and they're so toxic. You don't realize what you're doing. I was only 19 years old the first time I had a major event happen to me. I got cyanosis from working around cyanide. I started turning black from the deoxification of my body, and I had to be put in a hyperbaric chamber to save my life. And if you don't walk out of the plant, you know, or if you're not taken out of the plant dead or in an ambulance, it's not an incident for that plant, right? So they'll say so many days out front without an incident. Well, I spent 2 days in there just to make sure I had enough oxygen in my blood to go home. I had a near-death experience at the age of 40. I actually was in an AFib tachycardia that I've been suffering with this AFib, and the AFib would I thought would excite me and get my adrenaline going, and then it would tack out my heart. And I didn't really understand what was wrong with me 2 years later. But my AFib tachycardia, by the time I got to the hospital, was 260 beats per minute. And if anybody's ever been up to 180 or 160 beats per minute, if you're exercising or running or doing something or taking a stress test, imagine 260. You know, I was a complete mess. I was incontinent. I was urinating myself. I was just flopping all over the table, but I was still mentally there. I knew what was going on. And the doctors did everything they could to get my heart back into sinus rhythm. And multiple I was hit with the paddles. I was, you know, cardioverted 5 times at up to 150 joules. And they didn't put me to sleep to do it. And normally they do that, but it was extremely painful. And I remember coming off the table, I don't know how many times. And then finally, they actually injected a medication into me to freeze my heart up, like fentanyl would, and then brought me back. And I remember going out, and the only person that was with me was one of my business partners at the time. And when I woke up, I remember looking at my heart monitor, and it was doing 80 beats per minute, normal sinus rhythm. And I was like, you know, I just went through a few hours of horrible, horrible time. And I thought I was done. I thought I was a goner. And he looked at me and he was crying, and he says, he's a little guy from New York, little Italian guy, and I'm a big Polish guy. And he says, "Bull, I'm going to go home and change my underwear," after what he just watched, right? And he goes, "Don't go anywhere." And he goes, "I'll be back to see you tomorrow." And it was later in the evening. And he says, "They're going to keep you for a few days." So I had to stay in the hospital for over a week because they've actually fried the core of my heart with all that cardioversion. So they had to put me on blood thinners to protect me from getting a blood clot. And then now the doctors are starting to listen, and they understood that I had a problem. So at some point in the near future, when I got off the blood thinners, they did a heart cath, and they were looking for blockages, and they didn't find any blockages. And I finally found a decent cardiologist that told me that I was having arterial fibrillations from the outside of my heart. So ablation therapy wouldn't be a good treatment for me. So I ended up going home and on the standard of care of 6 heart medicines, and they were all really nasty ones. It's like carrying the giant pill bottle on your back, right? You can't, you're crippled from all this medication. Well, I did a ton of research into this, and it wasn't until I ended up at a trade show in Las Vegas. It was a water quality trade show expo that they have every year. It's either this year, it's in Orlando, and I was going through an AFib tachycardia, and they didn't have Fitbit back then, so I had a watch I bought that would tell me that, and it would warn me. But I didn't need the watch to tell me because I could feel it. So I had tranquilizers in my pocket, and I would take the standard of care for me was to take a tranquilizer, sit down, relax, wait for my heart rate to come back down, and go amongst my day. Well, I'm chewing on this tranquilizer. I'm at a water trade show. I couldn't get a glass of water anywhere to save my life, right? So every event I do, if you ever see me at an event, I have one of my water filtering stations right there, and I provide our good, ionized, alkaline, hydrogenated water to any who wants it. And the vendors love me because they don't have to go too far to get a glass of water that are next door to me. But I was at this trade show, and I listened to this doctor talk about energetic water and how important it was to the voltage of your body, and your body runs on so many different millivolts, and he had broken down each organ, and he said the heart runs on negative 435 millivolts, and if you don't have enough voltage in your heart, you'll have AFib, tachycardia, heart attack, stroke, and death. Well, I had them all except the stroke that I knew of. And I was like, okay. And I'm sitting like this. Here's my New Jersey plumber attitude, right? And I drop my posture. I'm leaning forward. I forgot about my heart. I'm listening. I'm opening up. This was my paradigm shift. This was my divine intervention, I'm going to call it, right? I'm listening to this guy. He's from Korea. His English wasn't so great. It was his first visit to America. His daughter was with him. She was from Texas. She spoke perfect English. And so she was helping him out. When he'd get stuck, she would take over. But I was so interested after he got done talking about, everything he talked about, the voltage in the water, and that you could actually physically test the voltage with a millivolt meter. And that was up my alley because I need proof, right? I was like you. I didn't think organic or something really special had to be good. I remember, okay, here's 2 items on a shelf, and my mom goes, "This one's 50 cents cheaper. This is the one we're getting." Exactly. Nothing else mattered, right? It wasn't about what's in it, how was it produced, does it have toxins in it? No, nobody cared about that back then. It was, let's save money today, because we didn't grow up with any money, so saving money was a big deal. So I just flat out understood the standard of care, and the standard of care, it was pretty much equal across the board, whether it was medical or anything else, or just buying products. So after I learned what I did from him, sat down with him and spoke to him, he gave me a bag of minerals to take home after my purified water. Now, I've been in the water purification business my whole life. Okay. And I had some of the best quality water probably in the world at my house, because I do kidney dialysis machines. I do dewater desalinators for ships and yachts and islands. I mean, we do a lot of really big things other than just drinking systems and whole home systems. So I had a dialysis machine I took out of Indian River Hospital, and I replaced it with a new one, and I rebuilt it and it was running my whole house off of it. Okay. So the water quality was so clean that I was doing something in my body I didn't realize. I was demineralizing myself, because I was drinking this deionized, ultra purified water that's even way more purified than reverse osmosis. And I was drinking this water all the time. Now, the reason it didn't happen to my kids or my wife, because they always drank juice and other things. I was a fitness, and that's what was really weird. I was super into fitness. I was into martial arts, weightlifting, running, swimming, you name it, I did it. Sports. And I was having all these problems, and it was like every time I went to a doctor and they would take a look at me, they would say, "What's wrong with you?" You know what I mean? You're like a spitting image of health, right? And I'm like, I'm not. My heart won't beat right. So we found out that my problem started from the demineralization and improper signaling from my heart, because when I thought I had a blockage or something like anybody would that had my problem, but I didn't. And they couldn't fix it with ablation therapy, and they said ablazing the outside of the heart doesn't help. And I'll wrap this part up. But so after I got home on all these medications, I couldn't believe I was going to be taking all these medications for the rest of my life. That's what I was told.
Right.
And I was like, no, 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 no. So I started researching and doing a lot of research after I met this doctor in Las Vegas, and his water would make negative 25 millivolts of energy in the water. And now green tea is about negative 25 millivolts. When you talk about antioxidants, and this is what I mean when I meant negative charge, it's acting as an antioxidant, right? So when I heard his slide say my heart runs on negative 435, and I was like, wow, I need to get my water to the negative 435. And that was just the way my brain works. I'm a mechanical mind. So I was looking and I researched and I found all kinds of minerals that I researched from all over the world. Actually, I think I spent well over $10,000 on these gemstones and different things that I could grind up into a media and pass water through it. And it took me about a few months to come up with something a little bit stronger. And it took me a few years to perfect it. But I was getting water negative 50, negative 100, and now I'm getting water negative 600 to negative 1200. And
Wow.
that might not sound like a lot, but that's a lot of energy. Even purified reverse osmosis water is like positive 100 to positive 200, depending on what's in it. And that means it's stealing electrons from the body. Anything that goes to zero is not stealing or donating, it's just neutral, right? And then anything that goes into the negative is donating electrons. So what does a donated electron look like? Well, a free radical is missing an electron. So when you donate that, you cancel out that free radical. Well, in one glass of my water, you have billions and billions of electrons. You know how much repair you can do?
Wow.
And the electrons are coming from, and we're going to get into this, and I'm going too deep right now, but it comes from the molecular hydrogen. And the molecular hydrogen is the mother of all elements, and it will go in and do that repair for you. And we'll talk about that more. So I did some research. I found some other doctors here in the US that I work with that I'm very, very excited, and had made me understand really what was going on in my health and how to get healthy and how to get off all those medications. So Sanas per Aqua is health through water, right? We're going to talk about today what's in your water, the quality of your water, what we can do about our water, and some of the future water technologies. And here comes that word again, healthification, right?
I love it.
Okay, the 4 essential requirements for healthy water. The first one I had mastered before I learned about healthy water. It was the free of contaminants and microorganisms. I went to school for it. I've dealt with it. I worked in thousands of homes, taking out toxins that were in wells, taking out bacteria and things like that. Where I was from in New Jersey, you had to pass a water quality test to get a mortgage. So I worked very closely with realtors and testing labs and homeowners, because without a company like our company, you a lot of times couldn't get past, because there was a lot of wells where we were in South Jersey, as it was a very rural area. Second is nano. And nano, some people say microclustered, some people say structured, but I like the word nano because it means the water is really small. So it's solvent, right? It's very high solvency, and it can penetrate deep into the cell. And when the water can penetrate into the cell, it can flush the toxin out of the cell. And a lot of people are carrying or loaded with toxins and need to detox. Well, this water will get in, get the job done, push out the bad guys, why it's hydrating you, and repeat the process over and over again.
So can I insert a question here?
Sure, sure.
So what is keeping people from letting that high solvency occurring?
It's the bigger molecular chain. Even purified water like reverse osmosis or deionized can still have a long molecular chain. So when we break down that molecular chain, whether it's through vortexing or spinning the water or through adding molecular hydrogen, it actually helps break down the chain. the water a lot of times cannot be very solvent. So we're doing that by making it smaller, by
So
making that
people are
bottle smaller.
drinking all this water and not getting hydrated or detoxified.
Exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
wow.
Because
Okay.
it's just passing right through them. I remember early on, before I understood cellular hydration, I remember giving blood or something, and my nickname is H2O Leo because I've been doing water my whole life, right? I even own H2OLeo.com. There's nothing there, don't look yet, but you know, someday it'll be a blog. But I bought it just to have it. And so to get water to cellular hydrate you properly and hydrate your blood, you have to have some kind of mineral source or something in it to drive it into at a cellular level. And it has to be small enough to get into the mouth of the cell to hydrate it. So it still has to be micronized, but it has to have, there's a lot of properties, and we're going to talk about it, that have to happen to make that right.
All right.
So number 3 is negative ORP. Remember I was saying I found out a way to measure the water, to measure the voltage of the water. Well, ORP is a way of measuring millivolts. And in some industries, like Mike Geyer, Mike Lowe, they use ORP to measure the oxidation of water because they need, with their ozone and their oxygen in their pools, to have a high oxidation level. So it's like, it acts like chlorine, but it's chemical free and it's totally safe, right? And it keeps the pool clean because it's wiping out any algae or fungi from growing in the pool, right? So that's a really good use for an ORP meter, and that's what most people use it for. But to see the ORP have a negative in front of it, it means now the water is an antioxidant. And very rarely you'll ever see that. You'll very rarely ever see it in any store-bought product, if not at all. And a couple of the products that do create negative ORP are chemically induced with a product called sodium boron hydrate 4 that's in some of the products that people are selling, which is not very good, or potassium hydride. So we're getting our negative ORP from active hydrogen. And medical grade active hydrogen isn't synonymous with ORP. It doesn't mean the amount. Like I can't say 2 ppm of hydrogen equals so many negative ORP. It really has a lot of other factors that go into play. But I know when I have a negative ORP in my water and I'm not messing with any of those other chemicals, I know it's coming from active hydrogen. So it's exciting to me. And now I know that I'm truly, the water is an antioxidant itself. So fourth is alkalinity. Now, alkalinity was kind of a big word the last 10 years, and a big to do. And we do need, our blood needs to be alkaline. It needs to be 7.365, 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year. Easy to remember, right? To 7.4 to be healthy. So when our blood gets acidic, then disease can set in, right? And we become oxygen deprived. So alkalinity is really important. And the reason our water is alkaline, because we use mainly, the main driver to make our hydrogen is magnesium. And magnesium is the mineral that's added back to our water that increases the pH. So here you have 4 wins. You know, you got it clean, you got it small, nano size, you have a negative charge. The water is an antioxidant. And now you have minerals added back for good cellular hydration, and it's alkaline, and it's going to help balance the body's pH. People drink soda all the time, and soda has the pH of battery acid. So what happens when you drink a soda, or even soda water, because it's CO2, and the CO2 is stealing and robbing calcium from the bones and magnesium from the muscles. And they're like, well, the body's homeostasis will balance it out. You have to have a pretty neutral pH. Well, you're going to start to get into an acidic pH, then you're going to get into trouble. So your pH is just as important as your body temperature. So keeping that pH up is a real big thing.
And I also understand that the alkalinity pH water that you can buy in off the store shelves, when it leaves the factory, it might have that pH level, but because they don't have this nanotechnology, correct me if I'm wrong, that it loses it by the time it gets to the store shelf, and by the time you get it home, and by the time you drink it. Is that accurate?
There's a lot of truth to that. And it's depending on the method they use to make it. Most of them, if they're using ionization, which is making molecular hydrogen, well, the hydrogen's not going to be there because it's going to pass right through the bottle. I don't care if the bottle's glass, it's going to pass right through it. The only thing hydrogen will stay in is an aluminum can, which kind of has its challenges there too, because we're dealing with aluminum, heavy metal, or a Tetra Pak. That's how you can hold it in suspension. So if it's in a plastic bottle, because hydrogen, remember, is the smallest molecule. It's one on the periodic table. It's very, very small. So it'll pass right through glass. So it will only take about 24 to 48 hours max to escape. Alkalinity will hang out a little longer if it's put there by a bicarbonate like baking soda, or if it's, or even magnesium. The alkalinity can hang out a little bit longer, but I've seen over time, if you leave water open in a bowl on a table and you measure the pH of it periodically through the day and the days and the weeks, that it'll go to neutral and then it'll go to acidic, and it could start out at 10. And the reason for that is the CO2 in the air loves the water and it goes into the water and it makes the water acidic. And most people don't realize that. And that's why most reverse osmosis and purification systems have acidic water, because it removes everything but the CO2. And then when you're drinking it, you got a pH of 5 or 6, which is acidic, and it's free of everything. Now, I'm a reverse osmosis fan, but I have a way of doing it to make it right. I add something after. So reverse osmosis is a very good way to filter water. It's just that now it's time to put back what's important.
Gotcha.
Now, the big question is, do you know what's in your water? Here's this cute little boy here taking a bath, and he looks just like my oldest son, Leo Jr., when he was that age. And I remember when I was a kid, I moved at the age of 10 from well water to city water. And we always had well water. So we had no chlorine, no chloramine, no ammonia, none of those chemicals that would be adding by the city, right? No fluoride, any of that. And I went from well water that was somewhat good. We didn't even have a water filtration system. I remember water was a little rusty, and that was probably the worst thing wrong with it. Sometimes smelled weird from the metallic of the rust.
Right.
But I wasn't having any problems that I knew of. And then when we moved to the town next door to us, which had city water, I developed eczema and psoriasis on my legs. And my mom was getting this black tar stuff to pour in the tub for me to rub on my legs. And it was really nasty and it stunk, but it helped reduce the eczema. And we got it from a dermatologist, and the psoriasis problems I was having. And I just kind of had that until I was about 17. And at the age of 16, I started working for my father. I mean, I went to work very early. I was working for him way before then, but I mean, I was full-time into water filtration at 17. And we were still living at home till I was 18. And I had put a filtration system on our house because we had bought a few and I had one left over, and I'm going to install it. We didn't even have one on our own home. And I couldn't believe every time I took the cartridges out of it, and it was a whole house just cartridge filter, I could take a butter knife and carve off all the sludge that was being trapped in just 30 days time. And this is stuff that was getting through our taps, stuff we were drinking, stuff we were bathing in every day. And after I figured out, okay, I'm going to go up a step and I'm going to get rid of all the chemicals in the water and make it even better, that my eczema and psoriasis went away. And I never even thought about it. I remember telling my mom and dad, like, "Oh my God, my legs look great. Look at them." Because I wouldn't wear shorts in the summertime or flip-flops or anything like that. I was always in pants and sneakers. And everybody's like, "Man, it's like 110 degrees out. Why are you wearing pants?" And because I was embarrassed. It was the only place I had it. And so when it went away, I started wearing them all the time. And it took a while because my legs were so white. Everybody laughed at me. But I got it to go away. And by getting rid of those chemicals, it went away. And my mom and dad go, "Well, you just grew out of it." That was their, understanding. We never, and I started thinking about the water, but again, it wasn't until later on I understood the health effects. So here's a little bit more about water. A lot of people don't know, almost all tap water has arsenic in it. Okay. And arsenic comes from it can come from the source, like in places like Arizona and really mountain rocky places, there's arsenic that naturally occurring from the ground. But here in Florida, like, our water is coming from the ground, and we're lucky if we get some seashells in it. You know what I mean? Because we're on a big sand pit here. But you're going to see, like in Arizona, much higher levels of arsenic, California, Colorado, up in New York and stuff. And it's coming out of the rock. But it's and everywhere else, it's coming from the concrete culverts that the water goes through. And radioactive contaminants are becoming, they've always been around, but they're becoming more and more of a problem on the West Coast. And they're coming over from Japan, from their reactor, or from the earthquake, going out. Pesticides is a worldwide problem. I could go into pesticide for days, like glyphosate and things like that. They're spraying these things on the ground. It's a runoff. It's going into our water. One of our water sources is Lake Okeechobee, and it's surrounded by farms. So it's loaded with pesticides, causing all kinds of problems. Nitrates is another issue with water, and that also comes from fertilizers. Hormones, which most people don't realize, we have a lot of hormones in our water. And we did a test in Palm Beach. And in Palm Beach, we found out that in the tap water, we had the #1 hormone was testosterone.
That's
And
crazy.
that was like, what was the reason for that? And then we went on. And I remember some doctors telling me why. Second was birth control, right? Like estrogen. And third was barbiturates, like Xanax, right? So, okay, everybody's on testosterone or birth control or Xanax down in the Palm Beach area. And it made sense because there's so many anti-aging clinics down there that are giving people testosterone, and women are even taking testosterone because it helps them with weight loss, right? So it's not good for other things, but they're taking it. And men are taking it because they want to be more virile and young again, right?
Right.
So the testosterone is synthetic, and the synthetic testosterone is not removed from water just by using it over and over again, and it just evaporates like chlorine and VOCs will. It'll build up, and we're recycling our wastewater. 25% of most municipal water that's in bigger areas is recycled wastewater.
Wow.
So let that sink in, right? That's where the pharmaceuticals are coming from. Fluoride is a tough one too, because fluoride is supposed to be for strong, healthy teeth, right? And it says right in your water quality report for strong, healthy teeth. And then right after that, it says fertilizer or ceramic waste product. And we'll get into the toxicity of fluoride later on. Calcium, that's natural, that's to be expected. Hexavent chromium, that's chromium-6. If we ever saw the Erin Brockovich movie,
Yes.
that was the toxin she dealt with, and she fought big industry on that. Lead can be coming from the source. It can be coming from the pipes. It can be coming from the solder in the pipes, right? So old galvanized and cast iron pipes are leaching lead right out of the pipes themselves. A lot of in the cities and in a lot of old areas, and we were using lead solder in the 80s. And I remember soldering pipe, and then they went to tin. And it was so hard to solder pipes. Every time I turned, it looked like a sprinkler system after I got done soldering all the pipes. And I wanted lead back. I loved lead, right? And you could smell it. I can't imagine what it was doing to me just breathing the fumes from soldering it. But lead is a thing of the past, but it's still in a lot of old pipes. The pharmaceutical drugs we just talked about with the hormones. Aluminum is another issue. We'll get into that more. And trihalomethanes are the byproduct of chlorine and organics mixing, and they create trihalomethane gas. And they're a big problem with breast cancer and lung cancer and things like that nature. So that's just a little bit of what's going on in the tap water. The problem we all face with tap water is chronic exposure to chemicals in drinking and bathing water. Municipal water, despite being filtered and clean and sterilized, it's debatable, still contains many dangerous compounds that are either unfiltered, that have leached from the pipes through which they flow, because when they do the testing, they're doing it at the water treatment plant, right? And then it goes from there to you. And what does it come in contact with in between is the real question, right? So a real test would be at your house. And I'm going to recommend that later on more. These include toxic substances like arsenic, pesticides, hormones, fluoride, compounds, hexavent chromium, everything we just talked about on the last slide, and many others. So that's where the problem begins. This is a good friend of mine, Dr. Nathan Bryan, and he's one of our partners in business. And one of the questions is, why do people get sick? And this is his answer. He says one of the greatest sources of getting sick is environmental toxins, and exposed to the water which we drink and the water which we bathe, right? And he says people get sick for two reasons and two reasons only. One, their body is missing some essential nutrient, well, you know about very well, that it needs to perform properly, right? Or two, the body, and it's generally both, the body's exposed to a toxin that prevents the body from performing. So think about every time you take a shower and it's toxic, or you drink a glass of water and it's toxic, and your body has to go through this whole system of cleaning it up. And it takes energy, right? You got your kidneys working on it, you got your liver working on it, you got all the VOCs going off to your fat tissue because that's how it protects your organs, causing a lot of problem. But using clean water free of toxins such as chlorine and fluoride and replete yourself with essential nutrients have a profound effect on human health. And I found that out for my own personal health after I understood the difference between clean and healthy water. It starts here with clean, but you need to get it to healthy.
And one other thing on this, I don't know if you're aware of this, about autism specifically, there are research studies on PubMed.gov showing their body's inability to even eliminate the toxins. So
Right.
their oxidative stress is actually higher, and they have low glutathione, which is pretty universal across all autoimmune diseases too. And it just, you can look at the exponential. When I grew up, Leo, there was, it was my friend, my mom's friend who got cancer.
Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah,
inside
right.
our own homes, and our dogs and our pets. I don't know if you know this statistic, but it's 1 in 2 dogs will have cancer now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it has to do with the toxins we're using on our yards, that they can't even breathe all that good stuff. And so I'm really excited that people can get water that actually helps their bodies to detoxify, because we can't avoid it all.
In the island of Palm Beach, which is probably the wealthiest zip code in America. Well, I know it is. It's even more wealthy than Beverly Hills.
Oh,
The people that live there, I do a lot of work down there. It's about 30 minutes from me. And I know a lot of the people that live there, and they're very involved in their community, right? And they actually fought glyphosate because glyphosate had gotten rid of all their birds. And they say, how's that
wow.
possible? Well, they're spraying it on all the plants and the grass, so all the worms and all the food that the birds eat is gone. So the birds are gone. And if they didn't die off of cancer themselves from eating these things,
Wow.
and it had a lot to do with indigenous plants too. They're putting in these plants that insects won't eat, so there's no insects. So like hummingbirds and just cardinals and blue jays and all, they're gone. The only birds you see in Palm Beach are seagulls, because they fly in from the ocean.
Interesting.
And so there is no birds. So if they get caught, if they get caught with pesticides like glyphosate, it's a huge fine. So they can't even have them on the trucks. So this is where it gets exciting, and this is where a lot of my research went into, finding out how to myself, but help all my clients. Until recently, scientists has promoted the skin as being a total barrier. Research is leading to the success of transdermal patches for administrating therapeutic drugs, that ideally we know now that the skin's permeability has a lot to do with molecular weight. You know how like they use Nicoderm patches and stuff like that because they know they can get it in, right? So scientists have graded the hydrogen atom as 1 on molecular weight. So it's the smallest, right? And we talked about that a minute ago. And now have discovered any molecule below 3,000 can enter the epidermis, which is the outermost layer of your skin. Any molecular weight, we're talking in mole weight or Dalton, that are lower than 750 can enter the dermis, the mid layer of the skin that's deeper in, and anything under 150 mole can enter the hypodermis, and that's the innermost layer and the bloodstream. So
and that all happens in 1 minute, correct?
Oh, it happens really fast. It happens really fast. So not only the water that we drink, the water that we bathe in is very dangerous. So guess what the molecular weight of chlorine is?
15? I don't know.
The molecular weight of chlorine is 35.4.
That's way under the 150.
Way under the 150. So that's a big deal. And we're going to get into molecular weights on all the toxins. So chemicals, both organic and inorganic from tap water, can enter your body through ingestion, inhalation, breathing, and transdermal absorption. Chloroform, a byproduct of chlorine, is inhaled and absorbed transdermally every time you take a shower or bath or swim in a pool.
We're going to talk more about that one next week when we talk about the whole house water system.
Yes. So showering in warm water also further opens your pores, and combined with your skin's absorption to your lungs during a 10-minute shower is greater than it would be if you were to ingest 8 glasses of tap water, of the same tap water you just showered in. Now, it's not that you're absorbing 8 glasses of water into your body. You're absorbing the chemicals from 8 glasses of water into your body. So people think that if they just drank filtered water, they would have all their bases covered, and that's wrong.
That's what I thought.
That's wrong. And simply stated, chlorine is a pesticide whose sole purpose is to kill living organisms, stated by the EPA. And when we consume water containing chlorine, it kills some part of us, destroying cells, tissue inside our body. Remember when I got into tap water, I started getting psoriasis and eczema on my legs because Our skin is like a farm, and it has to have the probiotics, and it has to have the things in it that are positive to make our skin fresh and healthy, right? So the molecular weight of chlorine was 35.4, as you can see here again. But the cancer risk among people using chlorinated water is 93% higher than among people who do not, like people in wells. And this is from the U.S. Council of Environmental Quality. And one common factor among women with breast cancer is that they all have 60% higher levels of these chlorine byproducts called trihalomethanes in their fat tissue than women without breast cancer.
That is crazy.
And Dr. Joseph Price has written some great books, but he says we're learning the hard way that the whole time we thought we were preventing an epidemic of one disease, we're creating another. 2 decades after we started chlorinating our drinking water, the present epidemic of heart trouble and cancer began.
Wow.
So glyphosate, we're talking about Roundup, right? And Roundup is pretty much everywhere. You can get it at any of your hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it. And glyphosate makes its way into our aquatic systems and drinking water wells and city water wells just from you spraying on your own yard. If you had a well, it's going to make its way down to your well. Glyphosate doesn't break down. It's synthetic. It's not going to break down. It's got to be removed by something that can absorb it. And it's just really bad. So what I'm trying to say here is that we're going to find glyphosate and we're going to find other pesticides and herbicides in almost all tap water. And for years to come, it's going to get higher and higher. Now, PFAS, what most people don't understand are like the fire retardant foams, right? That they use to put out fires. And it's loaded with this substance. And they use it in Simonize. They use it in Scotch Guard. They use it in, the fire extinguishers. Stainmaster uses it. It's on like water repellent shirts and stuff. You can find it in the wrappings of fast food, like the paper that a hamburger would come in would have PFAS in it, and you can ingest it. It has a very high molecular weight. It's about 500, so it's not going to go to your bloodstream, but it will go into your dermis, and your body will slowly feed off of it. So you will absorb some PFAS into your bloodstream from transdermally, but drinking it, now it's a super problem, right? Because it's such a large molecular weight, and it's going to get caught up in the body, and it causes a lot of health effects. Okay, we're going to talk about fluoride. And I took this and I figured this out. I put this together because I worked in chemical plants, and they had these diamonds on the tanks and trucks that had relative toxicity. And the diamond would go from 0 to 6, and 0 would be like milk, right? It's not toxic, right? And look at arsenic. It's number 5. It's extremely toxic, right? And we all know lead's toxic. If you have a TV and you've seen Flint, Michigan, you know about lead. And Flint isn't the only place that we're having these problems. And all old major cities and all old homes have lead problems. And it's very toxic. But look at fluoride. It's somewhere in between lead and arsenic. It's about a 4.5. Now we go over to what the environment standard allows, the EPA allows in our water, and the maximum contaminant levels of lead that we're allowed to have in our tap water by the EPA to be considered safe is 15 parts per billion. Now let's skip fluoride for a second and go over to arsenic that we know is more toxic. We're allowed 50 parts per billion because they can't change that because of the concrete culverts and all that. So they raised the standard. So that number should be lower than 15, I feel. And fluoride, the allowable amount is 4,000 parts per billion because they add it, right? Now, this next slide is really going to tell it all. All right, here you go. Fluoride is a poison. Read the back of your toothpaste. You see this little kid here that you always see little kids brushing their teeth, and they're doing a good job, and they're being good stewards, and they're cleaning their teeth, and they got this foam all over their mouth from the Crest and Colgate or whatever they're using, right? Remember we were talking about molecular weights? Well, yes. Fluoride has a lighter weight than chlorine. It's 18.9 mole, right? So we know it's way below 150. So just brushing your teeth, it gets in your bloodstream, okay? But it says on the back of all toothpaste, warning, keep out of the reach of children under 6 years of age. If you accidentally swallow more than used for brushing teeth, get medical help or contact poison control immediately. And it's right there. It's like the warning on a pack of cigarettes, right? But who's ever read that? I don't ever remember reading that, you know what I mean? Until I learned. And I'll tell you something else. With my heart condition, when you have a weak link in your body, and it was my heart for me, right? Okay. you are affected by a lot of things. A lot of people get allergic to a lot of things. They can't eat certain things or they can't do certain things because
Correct.
it has an effect on them, right? Well, for me, I didn't realize this, but every time I went to a dentist and got a fluoride treatment, I would go into an AFib tachycardia. And I was told that I had a nervous disorder. So I needed to take Xanax before I went to the dentist. Because that's my problem. I'm anxious. And I tell my doctor, I said, well, how come after I eat certain foods, I have AFib tachycardia? He goes, does food make you nervous? Right. And I'm like, no, it does. I love food. Right. No, it doesn't make me nervous. Right. So this is just a idiocracy that we go through every day. And this is why people have a hard time getting healthy because they don't understand. So here's one more thing I realized about fluoride. Every night before I went to bed, what did I do? I went and brushed my teeth. And I'd brush my teeth with Colgate or Crest as a standard of care that you get in the grocery store. Now, non-fluorinated toothpaste is hard to find. It's generally with the vitamins, or it's over by the pharmacy. The regular toothpaste aisle is all fluorinated. You're not going to find a non-fluorinated, and I'll accidentally pick it up. No way, right? You're going to have to know where you're looking. It's kind of like the organic section. It's all by itself, right?
Yeah.
So I'm brushing my teeth, and then I'm getting late AFib because I'm laying down because I'm going vertical, right? Or I mean horizontal. And I thought that maybe if I sit up and I put pillows under my head, it'll help me because every time I'd get AFib, I'd sit up. And I thought that it was because I was laying down. I realized once I stopped using fluorinated toothpaste, it stopped. My AFib when I lay down stopped. So I was constantly introducing a toxin into my body that my heart didn't like, and it upset me, whether it was from proteins or toxins like fluoride, and I was having a hard time. So next slide.
Very good point. So I'm going to just insert something right here. I actually did a YouTube video on fluoride and the thyroid specifically. And fluoride is actually a natural element in our foods. And we just need to get the fluoride we need from our foods rather than through these synthetic methods that are available to us now. And when I go to the dentist, I'm very specific with them. I do not want them to use a fluoride rinse, fluoride toothpaste on my teeth. And so you can ask that of your dentist. They do have it available.
And there's biological dentists that would never give it to you anyhow, which are great too. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that taught me about just a pea-sized amount of fluoride of toothpaste. If a child swallowed it, could stop the child's heart.
That's crazy.
That's how bad it is. So remember we were talking about heavy metals, right? And here's the health risk of heavy metals. Flint, Michigan is a great example. And when they show that water with all that brown stuff in it, lead's not brown, that's rust. Okay. And the rust is coming from the pipes. But there's also lead in the pipes, and there's also cadmium in the pipes, and there's other things, right? But the focal point right now, in that same water that's loaded with lead, it's loaded with all these other types of toxins too, but they're not talking about them. But and showing you this dirty water, it kind of grosses you out, and you wouldn't want to drink that or bathe in it, right? So Flint, Michigan's problem was, most people don't know this, but they changed their water source. And they went to a water source that was really high in TDS, and it was cheaper because it was a local reservoir that they tapped into.
Okay.
And the TDS on this water, say, was 1,000 ppm, right? And TDS, the EPA standard for TDS is 500 or less. And I think 500 is a high number. And at 800, you almost taste salt in the water. So that means the higher the number, the more conductive the water is, the more conductivity. Ocean water is 36,000 TDS, if that gives you any example. And you see the outdrives on the boat, they have these anodes on them to protect the motors from, or the outdrives from getting eaten up from the salt water, right? It's a magnesium that's a weaker metal that it'll attack before it attacks the motor. Well, the same thing happened, but it had no anodes, and you wouldn't want anodes in your pipes because then you'd have other types of heavy metal poisoning. But the pipes got attacked by all this conductivity, and they rusted and decayed so fast that they started leaching all this stuff. And that's why the water's brown, because of the rust, right? So that's the problem what happened to Flint, Michigan. And it was just because they changed their water source, and their original water source they were paying for from a neighboring city, and it was much more expensive. And the real problem is that they need to have a better source, and they need to reduce the conductivity of the water. They need to replace all the pipes, and the cost of tearing up every street and changing every home, it just doesn't happen. So it's just, these stories go away, but they don't really get better. You know what I mean? I've seen the same problem in New York City. New York City has the same problem. Any old city does. Philadelphia, you name it. So here is some of the heavy metals in the water. You have lead, copper, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. And look at the molecular weights of all of them. Lead is 207, not going directly into your bloodstream, but it's going into your dermis, it's getting close. Copper is only 63, it's making it to the bloodstream. Arsenic is 74, also making it to the bloodstream. Mercury's 200 and cadmium's 112. And even if it's getting into the dermis, some of it's getting into your bloodstream because your body is slowly feeding off of it. And this can lead to joint disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and disease of the kidneys, circular system, and the nervous system. With children, lead is a real problem because their brains are still developing. And I don't know if you remember seeing like the old commercials where they're chewing the paint off a windowsill because that's how
I
tall they
remember
are.
that.
And they're, you know, they're teething, so they're biting on the windowsill, and they used lead paint years ago, and older buildings are loaded with lead paint, and so it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So here's a question: you can swim in the ocean and it feels great. You can swim in a lake and it feels great, but would you drink it?
No, thank you.
No, right? And most people, you know, they think their drinking water quality is good enough when it meets certain standards, and not at all. And I'm going to talk about two areas that you need to be aware of. The point of entry and the point of use. And the point of entry means what comes into your building. If you look here at this little dollhouse we have here, and this is what we're going to talk about in our next episode. But on the left-hand side, you see a whole home filtration system. There's two black tanks, right? And that's the point of entry. So that's getting rid of all the bad guys coming into the house to make the water safe to bathe in, wash your clothes in. It's good for your plumbing and appliances, and so on and so forth. But we're focused on drinking water today. So drinking water underneath the kitchen sink there, or underneath, you can put them in your bathroom, you can put them anywhere you want. I have water coolers next to people's beds, you know, they just lean over and grab a glass of water. I have one up in my laundry room because it's, you know, so I don't have to go way downstairs to get a good glass of water. But drinking systems are going to reduce fluoride. We talked about lead, mercury, chlorine, arsenic, chromium, chromium 6, cadmium, bacteria, uranium, radium, volatile organic compounds. That means anything that's a chemical, trihalomethanes, which is a byproduct of chlorine, chloramines. Most people don't realize chloramines is another is like chlorine, but it's a different, it's formulated different. And almost all filters that will only remove chlorine does not remove chloramines. So most of the Brita pitchers and your other things that you're using, like your refrigerator filter for your cold water dispenser, they're removing chlorine, and your shower filters, but chloramines are walking right through. And they're smart, man. They're really smart. They know how to get these chemicals past. So the materials we're using are not only removing chlorine, heavy metals, and all that, we're removing chloramines too, because we're focused on it. And the reason most people don't do it is because the material is expensive. Sodium is in conductivity, nitrates, microorganisms, and pharmaceutical drugs. So our drinking systems, our most popular drinking system, will remove all these bad guys. We're also raising the pH from anywhere between 8.5 to 9.5. Our maximum ORP is oxidation reduction potential. When we're talking about antioxidants, is a negative 600. Increases the hydrogen in water up to 1+ parts per million. It microclusters the water to 5 to 6 molecules, and we've seen as low as 4 on more powerful systems that we build. And the H2O molecule, it's amazing.
I had to giggle when you said they don't take time to move it out of the water system because it's too expensive. Well, I will tell you, Leo, and I'm sure you can testify to this, being sick is expensive.
Yes.
Not only financially, but your time and your quality of life. And like for me, I didn't start, I mean, I had moments in my health journey, but it took me 19 years to really start having quality of life again that I didn't think was possible for me, because I thought, you know, I'm too far gone. The disease is too rare. I mean, I had all this rhetoric, all the doctors, there's no belief in the doctors that you can get better, but our bodies are designed to heal and repair, which is what this is a essential element. And I know we didn't talk on it, but there's an argument on whether it's 70% of your body is made out of water or 75, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is the majority of our organs and our blood and our brains and every organ in our body needs water, and it's over 60% for the entire body.
Yeah.
And it's vital that we get this element right.
In blood, it's over 90%. And it's really crazy because when they ask you how important is the quality of the water, ask them how important the quality of their body is, because the bulk of you is, right? And just like you said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of
Oh,
cure.
yes.
You know, when it comes to cost, I've met so many people that spent so much money on medical, and then when they see how simple it is for a lot of the issues and stop the oxidative stress and the problems that they're having with their body and skin irritations and everything, they couldn't believe it. They just couldn't believe that we did something so reasonable that they already paid tons and tons
And
of money.
so affordable.
Yeah, yeah. When you really look at the math, it is affordable because people
Yes,
are already making. Most conscious people are making an investment. They're buying bottled water or many other things. They're
correct.
making a conscious investment now. They just don't know where to go. You know, they just there's not too many places, and we're working on getting that information out, and that's why we're talking to you today, right?
Amen. Thank you.
So the quality of the water you want to identify as filtration that can be reduced up to 99% of toxic elements in your water. And that's a key number, 99 or 99.9. Then with an environmental natural filtering media, remineralization, to further balance your water and changing it, making the water an antioxidant itself. So here's the thing, like you were talking about and I was talking about, I had such pure water. I was at 99.999, or I would really truly say I broke the 100% barrier on my home.
Okay.
But I wasn't remineralizing. I wasn't putting anything back. And one thing we found out by doing live blood analysis and working with stuff like that with doctors, I watched them take like a petri dish with blood in it, and they were inducing water into it to see water cellular hydration or absorption by adding water to this petri dish. And if the water was purified, it would beat off like you were washing a freshly waxed car. It wouldn't absorb.
Really?
And if you put just a trace amount of minerals in it, it would suck right into the cells and they'd get real plump and they would hydrate. So that's what was going on with me. And then we could see the conductivity between the cells. They could, communicate like they're supposed to, and our whole body does because we're a big electrical system. It could communicate because it had energy on top of being hydrated. So when you're dehydrated, you're like, I think 10% dehydration reduces like 30% of your productivity. So can you imagine being an athlete and you're 10% dehydrated? Well, you're way down from where you should be. If you're an employee and you're working on the computer, that's why so many office buildings have water coolers, because they want people to stay hydrated, because they know if they're dehydrated, their productivity levels are going to go down, right? So this is old knowledge, and it just becomes the standard of care because the employees generally demand it. And we've been doing that business for over 20 years, doing coolers for offices.
And I know that Mike shared with me on the interview I did with him a few months ago that if they just took the RO water and put it into a plaster pool, because Exceptional Water Systems is about pools mostly, it would actually eat the calcium out of the plaster. And so it's doing that inside of our bodies. That was a huge wake-up call of understanding what the osteopenia and the osteoporosis that we're experiencing in later life. So
and when we do that,
solution.
We help people fill pools. We build, because they have such rust in their water, and the only thing that really moving at that rate is a big reverse osmosis system. But as we're adding the water, we're adding scoops of calcium to the water to mineralize the water, right? So we're watching the calcium content as it's filling up, and we're adding more and more and more, and going down there with an oar and swishing it around, right? Because we don't want to, these guys get these new diamond bright finish, and pools are expensive, and you got to add the minerals back. All life needs electrical charge to generate energy to function optimally for cellular levels of our major organs, our brain, and need a source of energy to function properly. With the healthification approach, you can have water that is finely filtered, that is an electron donor. It's, knocking out those free radicals, and it's remineralized for proper cellular hydration.
Wow, that is so exciting.
So here's some of the materials we use to make pH prescription water systems. KDF, right? KDF is this gold powdery substance. It's very expensive material. Like I said, when you do it right, you're paying more. KDF is really cool. Even like Newark, New Jersey has these big systems in their water because there's so much lead in their wells because of all the recirculation. We have to use KDF because it lasts so long. They run it through their city water system to reduce the lead content. But one of the cool things about KDF, it turns chlorine into chloride. You know how saltwater pool turns chloride into chlorine.
Great.
It's the reverse of that, right? So KDF is an amazing material, and it'll make carbon last 15 times longer because it's bacterial static. And it's bacterial static because it has an anode and an electrode in it, and it creates this storm of energy inside of the water, and nothing can grow in it. So it's not leaching out to you, but it's staying in the tank where it needs to be, or the cartridge, and it's going in there and it's doing its job, and it's keeping the carbon from getting, because carbon, if you leave it alone and you don't backwash it or clean it or add KDF to it, it'll grow fungi and algae, and your water will taste like a pond within weeks or months because bacteria grows so rapidly fast. Now, the carbons we use, like I was just talking about, coconut carbon is the most common carbon you're going to find. And coconut carbon is for taste and odor. It's going to be in most of your water pitchers, your refrigerator filters. We use them as a last filtration in our whole home and our drinking system. Coconut is the last thing water touches. Why is that? Because it tastes good. It's got a sweet taste, and people love a sweet taste. Let me tell you what, so many products out there today. I'm not a big fan of sweeteners or sugar or false sugars or fake sugars. I don't like them at all, but they're in almost everything, right? And even if it's a health product, and if it's a lozenge you have to suck on, or something else you put in your mouth, they generally put some kind of stevia or something in it to make it taste good. Because if it didn't taste good, you're done. You're not going to do it. Body will not give up pain for pleasure, right? So it wants something, it wants ice cream, and it wants, all these things. So coconut carbon is our last resort. It does the least of removing things, but the one thing it does do is make water taste good. So that's why they call it a taste and odor filter. It's not very good at removing other things. So that's the only reason we use it. Or we would use these other carbons because they're amazing. Catalytic carbon is the one I said that is the only carbon that removes chloramine. And chloramine is that other chlorine byproduct that's just as much in our water as chlorine. And so with catalytic carbon, we're grabbing the chlorine out of the water. The chloramine. Coconut carbon will grab the chlorine, but catalytic carbon will also grab the chlorine and just about all 4,000 VOCs that could possibly be in water. And VOCs meaning volatile organic compounds. Now, Beramic Carbon is a really cool material I found about 12 years ago. And the NSF version I get comes from Germany, and it's amazing. And I have to have it shipped over in a container, and it's expensive to get here, and it's expensive to make. But Beramic Carbon is a high calcium based carbon. And guess what likes sticking to calcium? Fluoride. So this is how we get the fluoride out of our water. It's also very effective at removing heavy metals, and it's also effective at removing radioactive isotopes. So Beramic Carbon is by far the most expensive carbon you'll ever buy. And most Beramic Carbon comes from horrible sources. And these horrible sources, the process they use to make them can be dangerous. So the NSF Beramic Carbon is much harder to get. And if you can get it, you got your bases covered. And next after the carbons, we get into the gemstones we're using. And the two materials we found that really, really work to give us that negative 600 ORP or higher is tourmaline, which is a gemstone, and garnet. And then also we're using magnesium. It's all mixed in there with those together. So those beads, there's a pack of them right here. We just had made up, and we're making them. And this is what makes molecular hydrogen. So if you were to put these beads in a glass of water for 18 to 24 months, it'd be gassing off hydrogen. So when it's in a filter cartridge, it's really cool. We found out, I filled a filter cartridge with it, and then I was testing it, and I shut the valves off on it. And then within 15 minutes, the filter cartridge cracked.
Wow.
And the filter cartridge is capable of handling 300 PSI. And I was only putting 50 PSI in it. I'm like, I must have a bad filter cartridge. So I repeated it, and it did it again. And so then I put a pressure gauge on it. And I watched the pressure gauge, and I only had a 100-pound gauge. And within minutes, it was at 100 PSI. So I put a 300-pound pressure gauge on it. And I just sat there and watched it. I couldn't believe it. Within 15 minutes, it was at over 300 PSI until it cracked. And then I was like, oh, we have to vent this off, whatever it's doing. And it was the hydrogen, and it's so reactive. So our systems actually vent off the excess hydrogen. And once you depressurize that cartridge, it slows down and stops making molecular hydrogen, so it saves that filter. And our system has that. It has a shut off once the tank's full, has a shut off system in it, and then it depressurizes it, and then it makes the gemstone last longer.
Wow.
So the remineralization, the minerals added back, is the magnesium. It's more than 90% magnesium, trace amounts of calcium and potassium. There's a touch of salt in it, but it takes the water from 0 ppm, because we purified it with a reverse osmosis system first on most cases. And then it brings the water up to about 50 parts per million of minerals, which is an optimum level for really, really good cellular hydration.
So this is why your system is so amazing, because you've actually created these cartridges yourself. You didn't go out and found Joe Blow who was making it. These are it's scientific knowledge put together in a product.
Everything that we use, minus the membranes, we make here. We have a sister company that makes the membranes for us. They do an amazing job. They've been coming to me for years to buy their membranes, because I buy a lot of membranes. And they have a membrane that is so good that most reverse osmosis gets a black eye for more than one reason. The first reason is that they waste a lot of water. Our membrane is such a big membrane, it only wastes 1 gallon of water to 1 gallon of product. And that's a 50-50 ratio, right? So half of it's going down the drain, but it has to, because the things that can't get through that membrane, the things that are too large, they get washed away. And then the other gallon goes into the holding tank. So every time the holding tank refills, say it's 3 gallons of water or whatever, you only waste 3 gallons. In the old days, it was 5 to 1. You would have 5 down the drain to 1 product. So it's very efficient, meets California standards, which was a big deal for us. And I haven't seen anybody do it better, so that's why we use the membrane we use. And it takes water down to 1/5 millionth of an inch. So the only thing getting through the membrane is water molecules. So everything else is getting pulled away. So now that you know what's in your water, let's talk about the quality of your water and what you can do about it. This is our local Palm Beach water quality report. Every year one comes out. It's generally a year behind. As you can see, we just pulled this one and it says 2020. 2021 isn't done yet. But when you look at your water quality report, there's a lot of things in there that they're being very forward about. Remember I talked about fluoride and how it says for strong, healthy teeth, and then after that it says waste products, right? Fertilizer, waste product, whatever, something you know that's toxic for you. Well, here's one of the big things, the biggest thing in every water quality report, and it cracks me up. It's written in different ways, but this is the one from Palm Beach. And it says special health considerations. So basically it's a disclaimer. So if you're immune compromised and you have HIV, AIDS, or you have you're on chemotherapy, or you have cancer, or vice versa, you have liver disease, you have any of these problems, consult a professional before using your tap water. Or if you have tropical fish, they'll tell you that too, right? So if you have to live in it, or you're already sick, right? So look, everybody had COVID. When you say they were immune compromised, or if you had pneumonia or anything, I mean, there's so many things that are immune compromised people today, right? They're telling you, tap water might not be right for you. You know, let's do something else. And now what we just learned, okay, now I'm going to drink bottled water because I'm immune compromised. I'm saving myself from that, but I'm still taking a shower in it or a bath in it. And it's like drinking 8 glasses of tap water. So I'm not stopping my mortality rate or my harm to my body just because I'm not drinking it anymore, right? It's still just as bad. I took a course on that and I found out that that was true for when we were doing cleanup of toxic wells. And I remember one of the first things the guy told me in a course, and I'm like, well, why don't we just filter their drinking water? And they're like, no, you don't understand. It all has to do with molecular weight and it gets into the body. And if drinking it's bad, bathing in it's like 8 to 10 times worse. And that was the first thing I was taught. So I was thinking, wow, if drinking it's good, then bathing in it's 10 times better. You know what I mean? So we reversed that philosophy with some of the things we're doing. We'll talk about that more later. But that's just fun. Not a fun fact, but a fact from your water quality report. That was a poor choice of words. So what can you do about it? Now, if you have a well, right? If you have city water, I recommend you look at your water quality report. And then you can go to EWG and it'll tell you how many times your local water treatment plant has been in violation and what they've been in violation for and how many times. And when they're in violation, they get a smack on the wrist, right? And there's some that never ever meet standard. There's some water departments that fail every month. I've seen them. And I treat a lot of homes and the people know it. And so they buy filtration systems. So you got to really take a look at it. And they can take all the test results they got throughout the year and pick the best ones. And that's the ones you see.
Right.
And then they'll say over here, okay, our levels of fluoride were from here to here because this was our worst and this was our best, or vice versa. You know what I mean? And then they tell you about, okay, allowable amounts of toxins are okay. They're okay for us, unless you got an immune and compromised system, right? So, and the next one here is, I work with a company that I really like. I think they're one of the best water testing companies. They test in all 50 states. They're called National Laboratories, right out of Ohio. To go to them, you go to watercheck.com and you order your water test, and you go on the top and it says well water or city water, and then you can go like good, better, best. I think it's standard, basic, and deluxe kits, and they do other testing too that goes even deeper. But in those kits, I mean, you start out I think at like 15 or some different things they're testing for, and in the deluxe they're testing for like over 100 different things. And you're getting it starts out like $100 and some versus $200 and some. It's not a big deal. If you go to your health department or some local labs, the deluxe test would be over $1,000.
Okay.
Right? So they're going to see a lot of information. And especially if you have a well, I make it mandatory that somebody uses a local company or this company and share these test results with me, so I can give you the best possible system and design the best possible system for you, because there might be a lot of things that we don't even need to worry about and certain things that we really need to focus on. So I have these tanks and I have these filters that are designed for different things. So
Okay.
there's real no one size fits all. So we have to focus on your problem, and we can focus on that. Now our PHRO 1100 drinking system like you have, it is pretty close to a one size fits all. I got people in Mexico on it. I got people in Haiti on it. I got people in all 50 states on it. And because of the reverse osmosis membrane, it just about removes everything. And then we're in charge of what we put back in it. So it pretty close is to a one size fits all in some extreme cases. And I don't think you're going to find them in the continental United States or in that areas, that you would need a little bit more than that, depending on where you
one
are.
other note here, I had a neighbor who had his water tested because he and his wife were experiencing some health issues. And what he found out was some of the metals in the water, because the government, it's too expensive for them to remove it, they actually raised the standard, which you had indicated earlier on another element. So even though you get your water testing back, it's important to get the right amounts that are healthy for your body, if there are any that are, right?
Yeah, and I say, I look at the numbers that they think are acceptable, and I say, man, I think the numbers are way lower than that. And I, when they say, oh, it's so much cyanide is acceptable. Well, to me, no cyanide's acceptable, because I had cyanosis. I'll tell you from firsthand experience, but I was same with lead. I worked in tetraethyl lead. 1 drop of tetraethyl lead on your skin can kill you. That's what they put in anti-knock fuel compounds.
That's crazy.
And it was funny. We would get the day off every now and then because Greenpeace would come in and block our gates, and also we couldn't come to work. So we'd get the day off with pay because it wasn't our fault. So we were happy when they came because we didn't have to get toxified that day.
Wow.
All right, test your water. You can test your water. You can look at your water treatment department. If you say you test your water, right, and then you contact someone to evaluate your test results, let's just say you didn't know anything. This is you going in, right?
Okay.
You call your water treatment department up. They don't know anything about health. So if you're dealing with something specific and you're removing PFOS or lead or chromium 6, right, or chlorine for this health concern, and you talk to your water treatment department about it, and you say, hey, I got this health concern. I say, well, the national standard, or the EPA allowable limit is this amount, and anything that amount or lower shouldn't give you any trouble. That's all you're going to hear from them. You're never, ever going to get any more information than that. So it's like talking to a wall. I call them all the time when they send out these reports. I know I don't have these things in my water because I have home filtration, right?
Right.
But it cracks me up. And they say, well, if you have tropical fish or if you have immune compromise, I want you to stay away from tap water this week because we're doing something different to it, right? And you might have a reaction to it. So I'll come up and say, well, what's different about it? Explain it to me. And finally, they either figure out it's me or they hang up on me. and
Ron.
they know me, right? You know, or I'll try to disguise my voice. But or you can ask your MD, right? And now, how many, you know, modern medicine, we're going to say, not the integrative MDs. There's a lot of those out there. I'm talking about modern medicine MDs. Most of them don't know nothing about health and water. Their training was less than 8 hours on nutrition in their 8 years of school, right? So they learn more information from their pharmaceutical representatives than they, when it comes to drugs, than they ever learned in school. They learn about the body in school, and then the pharmaceutical rep that comes in that sells it to them, they're the ones that tell them about the drug and what it can do and why the client needs it. And then that's how they get educated, right? So, and your pharmacist generally knows way more than your MD does about the drug and what it can do to you. So if you ask your MD, they're probably not going to know how to properly read a water quality report, even if you had one done for yourself. So who do you ask, right? You'll need to identify someone with experience and the expertise that works with this to evaluate your results of your water and test and together design an ideal water filtration system to support the unique needs of your health based on the water flowing through your residence or business. And this can't be more true. I do it all the time. I always figure out what's the best way to do it. And this is just a recap. Remember, we were talking about the 4 essential requirements for healthy water: free contaminants, nano, negative charge, antioxidant, alkalinity, and doing to the minerals and what we're adding back into the water. And remember, the scientists have created the hydrogen atom as just one for molecular weight. Any mole weight below 3,000 will enter your skin. Anything below 700 will go deeper into your skin, or 750. Anything under 150 go into all the way into your bloodstream. And even when you get down the numbers lower than that, you even pass the blood-brain barrier. I just want to remind people of that. The future of water technology, the H2O water element is even more powerful than one can imagine. In fact, it's so nourishing that humans would perish without it in a mere 3 days. There is now available a proprietary technology that has advanced to the point where we can take the simple taken for granted water molecule, H2O, and it can be naturally manipulated and make the water molecule an antioxidant itself.
Wow, that is exciting.
The future of water technology is what is molecular hydrogen, right? In water, and why is it used? Hydrogen is the most fascinating element with a wide range of uses and chemical properties. It actually is fusion in the sun, even. And it's the key to ATP production. Well, we know what that is within our mitochondria, cells' energy. And it's the father of all other elements. It's what goes in and puts out the oxidative fire of free radical damage. And what does free radical damage cause? Chronic inflammation. And what does chronic inflammation cause? Chronic disease. So it's the Mac Daddy. The properties and cutting edge of anti-age technology systems, and one of the strongest negative oxidant reduction potential, the ORP, negative ORP in water. It's super, super strong. This technology leverages the ability to naturally infuse molecular hydrogen in the water to promote the finest intercellular hydration available today. And I have to apologize, when I'm going through it, I'm dyslexic. So I put words in front of words and I switch them around. But dyslexic thinkers think in 3D. So we see things backwards and forwards. That's why we write 3's and B's backwards as kids. Okay. And my teachers had a fit with me because they didn't understand why I did the things I did. And most dyslexics are left-handed, and I was left-handed. My mom kept putting the pen in my right hand, or the pen crown in my right hand. So I'm ambidextrous. So I'm excellent with both hands. So we think a little bit different. What is molecular hydrogen and why is it used? All right, studies and research and benefits on hydrogen water for arthritis, inflammation, weight loss, diabetes, cancer, skin aging, acidosis, allergies, eye health, and numerous other facts. Hydrogen has over 1,000 studies now, and I have the molecularhydrogenfoundation.org. It's a science research site, and Tyler LeBaron runs it, and it's a nonprofit organization. And you can, if you have a problem or a condition, you can generally find it on this site and find the research that they did at a university or a medical study or IRB study, and you can see the results, which is awesome. So molecularhydrogenfoundation.org. or you can look up Tyler LeBaron. He's amazing. The smaller molecule cluster, the better the water. The cluster in ordinary tap water is very large, but specifically finely filtered water has very small molecular structure. Now I'm going to explain this in a better way.
Okay.
I'm from Florida, so we have grapefruits and oranges and all kinds of stuff growing around here, right? That are really good. And let's talk about the Aquapori cell. That's your skin, right? And you want to get something to pass through that cell, right? So you have this large molecular chain, and it's too big to pass through the pore of the skin, right?
Okay.
So it'd be like trying to take a grapefruit and throw it through a chain link fence, because the chain link fence now is just a blown up version of yacht. It's just going to bounce off.
Right.
But what we do is we break that grapefruit up into grapes and make it smaller, because it's all chained together. We make the chains smaller and smaller. They could be 4, 5, 6 molecules. They're as big as 20 molecules from the source. And so when we break it down, that's how it gets into the cell and gets the bad stuff out. That's how it gets the good stuff in, like the minerals. That's how it mineralizes you. That's how it brings in oxygen and amino acids and all that. So when you can properly cellular hydrate, you can properly detox, because it's this,
Gotcha.
they work together, right? So it just allows us to rehydrate better, allows us to absorb more to the body, and it just stimulates our immune system.
Wow. Thank you for that. A great example.
Yeah, I knew I needed to add that in. All right, our most doctor recommended drinking system is the PHRO 1100, the same unit that you have.
Mhm.
And as we talked about, it does everything. It infuses hydrogen, it alkalines the water, and it still uses reverse osmosis to remove that down to that 1/5 millionth of an inch, but still only wasting 1 gallon to 1 gallon of product. So the main things that people are concerned about, most of my clients anyhow, fluoride is generally high on the list. It removes that. It removes lead, mercury, chlorine, arsenic, chromium-6, cadmium, bacteria, uranium, volatile organic compounds, triallomethanes, chloramines, sodium nitrates, microorganisms, and pharmaceutical drugs. Now, this system is capable of raising the water pH. Now, this has an effect on how much CO2 is in your water. So your pH might be around 8.5 and it might be around 9.5. It really depends on the source, because it doesn't remove CO2 from the water. So if your CO2 levels, like we have very low CO2 levels here. So my pH of the water here is more like 9.7.
Wow.
And in other areas, I see it 8.5. And they're like, how's that possible? Because you're removing everything. Well, it doesn't remove the CO2 gas, right? And that's why just reverse osmosis by itself has a very low pH, because it's removing all the minerals that are buffering the pH, and the CO2 is still there, and the pH drops like a rock. So maximum ORP, which is our oxidation reduction potential, is -600, increases hydrogen in water up to 1 to 1.2 parts per million. I think it's around 0.3 parts per million is therapeutic. So it's 3 to 4 times higher than that. And it brings the clusters down to 4 to 5 molecules, which is really small. In city or well water, you can use this on both. It actually has an option for a UV light. A lot of people, when COVID came out, they said, oh my God, am I going to get COVID in my water? That was a huge question. And a lot of relief here. No, you cannot get COVID from water. It cannot survive in water. It doesn't have that ability. But there's other things in water like Legionella and other bad things that can survive in water. And one of the problems I had in most of the major cities, and I worked in a lot of them, everybody was working from home. Nobody was going to work. So all the water was staying stagnant in the pipes, and Legionella and bacteria and all kinds of stuff was growing in the pipes. So when they turned the water back on, it could have made you sick. You know what I mean? So UV light will protect you from anything that has DNA in it. And how UV light works is the water passes through the UV light and it goes through this. There's a quartz crystal in the middle with a bulb in the inside of it, and it's actually putting out this energy that is taking the two proteins and any DNA or any bacteria, and it's fusing the two proteins together. It's called a sterilizer. It's sterilizing it so it can't reproduce.
Wow.
So the neat thing is the reverse osmosis membrane will remove those bodies, but the UV light will kill them. So they can't reproduce. So by doing that, by running through UV light and going through the membrane, the bodies itself are getting washed down the drain, because the bacteria is about 0.2 micron and the membrane is 0.0005 micron. So it can't even get through. But the problem, if you're having a real high problem with Legionella, cyst spores, or viruses, there is the the factor that they can get hung up in the membrane. And over time, as the membrane fails, and the membranes last 5 to 7 years, but at the end of its life expectancy, if it isn't changed, the bacteria can grow through the membrane and it can get to the other side. It takes a long time, but it can happen, and it's just preventive maintenance. So people were excited about UV lights, and I've been working with them for years, but in the last year they wanted them. Here's a combo package. We're going to talk about Total Home in our next meeting, but we do our Total Home Premier system that has the same drinking system we just discussed, that comes with a whole home system that we'll be bringing you up to speed on in the next podcast.
Exactly, and that's actually what I have in my house. I have the total home system of the under the sink and the rest of the water.
It's amazing, and we could go. That's a whole nother conversation.
I'm grateful I bought it, especially the more I've learned by watching more of your videos since I purchased them. 2+ years ago.
And that became the standard package everybody wanted. So when you combine them, we're giving you a discount when you're pulling two together. Molecular hydrogen technology, drinking systems. We have a countertop system. We have a couple different under counter systems. We even make commercial under counter systems for people that have a higher demand. I've even made really big drinking systems that go in people's basements, and they have water lines running to every bathroom. So they have this drinking. It's something we can do. It's, of course, it's more costly, but it can be done. We also do offices, coolers, and residential coolers. Like I said, I have a cooler in my laundry room, so we don't have to go downstairs to get a good drink of water. And the coolers are great because you can do room temperature, cold, or hot. So in offices, it's great. You can make like soup. Like my daughter likes to make soup with it. She just puts the hot water on it. And then, I can put, right after she makes soup, I just push this other button. I got cold water. Somebody could have sensitive teeth and they want room temperature water. They don't want that cold water hitting them in the mouth. So they're pretty cool. We also do dispensers for businesses and hotels, spas, and restaurants. So you ever see those bar tap things, and they'll bring you a vase to your table.
Yes.
They're providing you with filtered water. So we can do just filtered water. We can do pH prescriptions, alkaline hydrogen water. And it's neat because we even have the laser back here, and we can etch the vases with their logo on one side and ours on the other. Or, it could be hydrogen rich water. We could put that all over it. And then, different, whatever they're getting, it could be on the vase. So they know what they're handing out to each people. And it can do sparkling water too. Now you got to remember, sparkling water, no reason to have alkaline. So it should be clean, but no reason to have alkaline because they're adding CO2 to the water to make it sparkling water.
Right.
And that's
it's negating what you're doing.
It's a carbonic acid, right? So it's very acidic, And then we have tablets too. We have a little product here called H2 True. And H2 True is tablets, and you drop one tablet in a glass of water, and you should have filtered water at least. I wouldn't use tap water. But if you want to hydrate, you want a boost of hydrogen, one tablet is equivalent to 100 milligrams of caffeine for mental alertness, but it doesn't speed up your heart because it's what's happening is all those electrons from the hydrogen in the water that you're drinking in, it's got 80 milligrams of magnesium, which is for health benefits as well, will stimulate you, and it'll make you feel really good. But sometimes people notice the heart rate will go down a little bit because their body just got this free energy. It's like it's tax-free energy, just like drinking our water out of our drinking system is the same thing. It's tax-free energy. What most people don't realize, their body has to go and waste energy to break down the foods we eat, the liquids we drink. It comes at a cost to us, even though we're eating to sustain ourselves, right? And we're drinking to sustain ourselves, but it still takes a little bit of energy to adjust it to something we can use. And what happens if we can't use it? It becomes a waste product and we get rid of it, right? And if we can use it, we do. Well, this hydrogen water has already been converted into something the body really, really loves, because we run at negative 25 millivolts if we're healthy, and we're dropping 600 millivolts into the body to offset any shorts or electrical discharges we're having. For my own health reasons, when I started drinking this type of water, that's when I got off all my 6 heart medications. I didn't get into that, but it was just a few weeks after I started drinking it, I wasn't having AFib anymore. And I'm not saying, hey, not listen to your doctor or anything like that. I'm not going down that road. But what I'm saying is I took my medicine every day because my body reminded me to. So when I started drinking this water, I noticed a huge improvement in my well-being. I can go up a flight of stairs without being out of breath, right? I could do things I couldn't do, and I was only 40, right? I could run circles around myself today, right? And I'm 55. So when I got this water into me, it was so helpful, and it changed my life, and it got me off all those medications. I was recently back to my cardiologist not that long ago. I was taking flying lessons, and FAA would not give me a permit to solo because I had a pre-existing condition. So he goes, you have to go and get all kinds of testing done. It was a stress test, echocardiogram, Holter monitor. I had to do all kinds of stuff. So I go back to my cardiologist that I haven't seen in 8 years, right? And he just got his arms crossed, and he's looking at me. And he says, well, are you still on any of this medication I put you on? I said, no, doc, I'm not on any of this stuff anymore. He goes, let me listen to your heart. He goes, you sound good. He goes, what did you do different? Because he knew I was in trouble. You know, I was in big trouble. And I told him, I said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. And so I told him, and he says, how can I get this water? And I installed, because he had coolers in his office that my company did many years ago, and we were still servicing them, but they were just filter coolers. That's back, remember, when I was just clean water. I wasn't healthy water yet. And most people that I told about the healthy water, it raised the price, and they didn't want to do it because they weren't on board yet. So he says, do it. And I did it to his office. And I said, in 30 days from now, if you're unhappy, I'll just do one and you try it and tell me what you think. He had his own private cooler in his office. So in 29 days, I called him up and I said, hey, what do you think about your water? And he said to me, he goes, I love it. And I said, you want to keep the energy, alkaline hydrogen water filter in your cooler? And he goes, yes, I do. He goes, it got rid of my heartburn.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow. And he goes, I said, tell everybody about it. He goes, no, I can't do that. And so it was funny, but I got, and I got a referral from him, from a friend, you know what I mean? Not a patient, a friend.
So I have a quick question here. When you're traveling, like you're going to go to Texas tomorrow, what do you do? How do you travel if you can't carry your water system with you?
The beauty of most of my events, we always have one of our coolers that are set up at the event. Okay. And I do this event like every other month. So I actually have like 5 of my coolers there because I have them in their offices. Cheat.
What do the rest of us get to do?
Well, you can't really travel with the water very long because the hydrogen is going to escape. We have a countertop model that people travel with. Okay. And I do have to put a big warning on this. And it's not about the quality or the water quality or anything like that. The airports hate them because it looks like a bomb inside, right? Because it's got beads in it, and it's got that KDF, it's a metal, and it's got when they x-ray it, it just looks just like a pipe bomb. And so I've had people have their luggage torn apart by robots. I have people taken in the back room and given the rubber glove treatment. I'm not kidding. This really has happened because they thought they were carrying something. And now the airports know we're on a list that we have water filters and this is what they look like. And it comes up on their thing. But if you're going to take it with you, check it. So don't take it to your thing. You're going to get held up in line. You're going to get taken out of line, and you're going to be there for a while. You might people have missed their flights over it.
Well, that sounds like a really good solution. I like that.
You can take that with you, and also I tell people put it like in a Tupperware container, so because there's water in it, so it doesn't get wet inside there. And also there's shower filters you can take with you to protect you for the showers.
Okay.
All right. So just to recap, what's in your water? We talked about the quality of your water, what you can do about your water, and the future of water technology. And I'm going to touch on that just for a second. We have shower systems that are already made and coming back out that are going to be great as a package with a drinking system. If you can't do a whole house system because you have you're in a hotel or not like me in a hotel, but if you're in an apartment or a condo and you can't get to the main, we have some really cool shower systems we'll talk about in the next episode. And there's just some really cool stuff coming up. So keep an eye on us.
And I love that we live in 2022. We put a rover on Mars. We can see other universes. Why have we not been able to heal and repair the body? And I know that we can with that live blood analysis that you shared, with the technology of putting a cell into a petri dish, and we can see what we put with it, what environment we put that cell in can heal and repair itself, because our bodies are made to heal and repair. So the future of technology is here. It's for people waking up to be able to recognize it know what to believe, and take action.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And everything we use, our filtering medias are all NSF and WQA approved. I'm very tightly affiliated with those companies. You can see behind me is some of the filtration systems that we make,
mhm.
and we can just about we'll deal with your situation. You know, if the PHRO 1100, which is the one that's right over my left shoulder where my thumb is,
Yes.
that thing can handle just about anything within reason. And then your whole house systems are back there too as well. And then that little one in the middle back there in the dead center right there is the countertop drinking system that you can take with you. I had a girl, one of my clients, she was in 9 countries in Europe. She was from like Italy to Ireland, and she had I gave her every adapter I had, and she had the maintenance person from each hotel hook it up for her in her hotel room.
Mm.
So she used it the whole time. And at the last one before she was flying home, she gave it to the maintenance guy because she didn't need it anymore. She didn't want to fly back with it. So she just gave it to him, which was really nice. And she goes, "Take this home. You'll love it. It's good water." And she goes, "I've been using it, you know, for the last month, you know, on my trip. So it's been great." So I get a lot of cool stories like that.
That is awesome. Well, Leo, I am so grateful for this time we've had together. And I just want to tell my listeners that when you are ready to move forward and take action, please contact Leo at PH Water Prescriptions. And I've got the PH Prescriptions, the link below. I also will put my link for my referral link for you to get into the systems and see the pricing and see what's going to work best for you and your family. And as always, I welcome you to come and ask questions, email them, text them, whatever you need to do to get your questions answered, because I truly believe the more we know the why and we really understand, we will take action, because I don't want anyone ever to experience what I've gone through. And I know it's totally preventable at this point. At one point when I was down my down part, I thought, it's just part of life. It's just the lucky card that I drew, whatever. But I've come to learn that that is not true.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, you say it all the time. He goes, "You were given a bum body, you know,
Yeah.
you were just given a bad one, you know,
Bad DNA."
And you know, because he was much older than me and way better health. And I barely have any wrinkles, and I'm 55. You know, I'm just starting to grow some gray. You know, that's a new thing. And so I'm like, I'm doing pretty good. You know, I'm holding the hands of time back with these antioxidants that I'm using on my body, in my body every day. And I'm very happy about that. And I thank you for giving me the time today to speak to your audience. And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to you, and I'll be happy to answer them. I'm sure after everything you heard, there's going to be a lot of questions.
Yes.
I'm good at answering the questions. I'll be answering questions all this weekend at a medical convention I'm going to.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and be well, get well, and stay well. Thanks for watching. And remember, one change can have an enormous effect. Remember to subscribe, hit the bell and the like, and we'll see you next time on Love to Live.